Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you guys here on this Friday the 12th of April, 2024. Thank you for tuning in. I don't know. This is not looking good, guys. The war scene is not looking good. I think this summer could turn into something that escalates very rapidly out of control. And the circumstances involved in that could be dire, and it could create a tremendous amount of fear out there. I'm very concerned about this, and you'll see the reason why when we get started and talking about what's going on out there in the show. The United States has issued a travel warning for Israel. There's an Iranian attack believed to be imminent, and also fear that the Gaza war could spread. It could spread between Israel and Iran, the United States. Of course, Iran is on Russia's side. This whole thing, like Iran and is on the BRICS side, and it says Israel's bracing for a worst-case scenario that U.S. officials believe could materialize within just hours. The possibility of a direct attack on Israel soil by Iran in retaliation for a strike almost 2 weeks ago that killed 7 Iranian military officers. Iran has vowed to take revenge for Israel's killing of its commanders, who were hit on an April 1st strike in the Iranian embassy. So this is imminent, that Iran could actually launch an attack. Of course, that very well could start the war. You guys better fill up your cars with gas. This could all happen that fast. Seriously, I mean, gas availability would be in question of gas, not just the price. I mean, if it cost you right now, say $40 to fill your car, if you're in the United States, well, maybe you could afford to pay $80. But what really comes into question then is the availability even. Can you actually buy it? How are you going to get to work? This is how serious it could be if 20% of the world's oil gets suddenly cut off. And that's what could happen if Iran enters into this war. And I mean, this is just one of the multiple threats we have coming at us. The war in Israel is just one of the. Then there's a war in Russia, and that hasn't gone away. And what about the Philippines right now in the South China Sea? This is setting up to be a third hotspot here that's getting ready to erupt. So the Biden administration on Friday reassured the Philippines anew that the United States' commitment to the island's defense is steadfast, amid increasing concerns about provocative Chinese actions in the disputed areas in the South China Sea. They're going to guard that. They're going to guard the area around Taiwan and the South China Sea as well. And, if war gets going in the Middle East, big time, maybe China will say, hey, this is our opportunity to step in and do this, or whatever they're going to do. I'm just saying, Now, the Russian troops are arriving in Niger as the military agreement begins. So they're taking over there in Niger. It says dozens of Russian military instructors have arrived in Niger as part of a new agreement with the country's junta, which has cut links with the West. So they're taking over. BRICS are taking over that. They're moving in and they're moving their troops in. It's a big change. There's a lot happening now. Like here in Ukraine, the Russian-occupied Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, they've been launching attacks against the nuclear power. Can you believe they're actually flying drone missiles into a nuclear reactor trying to blow it up? That would, the only thing I can think of that they want to do with it, if they're flying a weapon into it, is to try to blow it up. They're targeting it. Somebody is. Russians are saying it's Ukraine. Ukraine's saying it's the Russians. But somebody's targeting that thing. And the plant, the nuclear plant's continuing to deteriorate. This could be one of those things where it can act as a trigger for a wider war in Ukraine. Boots on the ground war in Ukraine. The reason why it can act as a trigger is they're not going to ignore. If they get a radiation leak, they're not going to ignore that situation right in Ukraine, but it's in the war zone. So that's just a recipe for disaster right there. But now it gets worse. The Russians are building up their armaments really quick. They could soon, I guess, they could have 10 times as much firepower as Ukraine has, because they're building back really fast. And they're probably, as soon as the land dries out from spring, things are wet and muddy in the spring, but as soon as the land dries out, Russia's probably going to be thinking about an advance, a new offensive of some sort or another, and while Ukraine is weak. Right now, they're kind of softening Ukraine by dropping these bombs on their power places where they produce power. But what happens when that softening ends, and if they were to go into a rather large offensive in Ukraine, Ukraine starts to fall? Well, NATO's committed. They're not going to let. They're not planning on letting Ukraine fall. So how are they going to stop it? Think about that for a minute. Now, here's a story about $12,000 in pork that is stolen from a truck in northeastern Philadelphia while the driver was having a nap. $12,000 worth of pork now could fit in the trunk of a car sedan. Seriously. This is the price things are getting to. Seriously. I mean, how much pork would that be? $12,000. Probably, considering the price of cuts nowadays. Heck, a person could win the lottery. They could win $50,000 right now up here in Canada. And that should buy them a tank full of gas and a few groceries on their way home. That's the way things are going. Now, we got a lot of troubles out here, I'm telling you. Avian flu found the 7th state as cattle restrictions grow. North Carolina authorities on April 10th reported that cows in the state tested positive for highly pathogenic avian influenza. And why this is so serious is, these are not birds. We've heard for years, about, maybe for the last 5 years or so, we've heard about, a bird farm or a chicken farm or they had to cull the chickens or whatever. They had avian influenza. These are not birds. These are warm-blooded mammals like us. And they're catching it now, and it's spreading between them. That's why this is alarming. These cows are testing positive for this highly pathogenic avian influenza. And so they're trying to put restriction on the movements of the cows. This is very frightening. That's all we'd need. Nuclear bombs dropping in the Middle East and a bird influenza and a lockdown on top of it all this summer. And maybe the war in Russia spreading out and boots on the ground in Russia. And then maybe at the same time China says, well, everybody's in a chaos right now. They got bird flu spreading through the world. And and the financial system's crashing, and there's China sitting there watching, and they're saying, and Russian war in Ukraine, and they have boots on the ground, and they can't get enough military to even fight that war, and then there's nuclear bombs dropping in the Middle East and stuff, and China might say, hey, well, everybody's diverted and their attention's over there, let's go and see what we can do over here. And then we have even more to deal with. So everything's kind of coming to a head. It looks like this summer, if we keep going in this direction we're going in toward this summer, and all this stuff that I've just laid out for you guys starts to actually happen, it's going to be more than frightening. And the people that have normalcy bias, they're just going to have to drop that normalcy bias. They're going to have to say, hey, maybe we are in unusual times right now. Maybe I should have been prepping. People that have normalcy bias, maybe they will be hungry or thirsty. Maybe they won't have any gas in their car and not able to buy any at any price. So, let's see what else is going on here in the world. We covered all that. Now, look at this. This is interesting. You know, people are still trying to smuggle gold through the border, and this is really something. See these machine parts down here? They look like machine parts. Oftentimes, you know, I mean, if you're sending away for an order of machine parts, they really do look like machine parts. It's amazing how good they did, but that's gold. That's all gold. It's all gold smelted to look like machine parts. And it's a lot of gold, quite a lot, too. It said, let me pull this page down here. It said, recently authorities have seized 320 pounds worth of suspected smuggled gold during a cargo freight search in the Hong Kong International Airport. So that's kind of ingenious. I wonder how they got it so it looked like... You can see where they tested it, though. The different spots where the gold's showing through. I would say that that's where probably the inspectors of the ground a few little spots to see if it's gold underneath. And it looked like they cracked the end off one of those bearings or whatever. They probably smacked it with a hammer. It probably showed gold underneath. Some sort of a coating they put on it. Taking a look at the silver price today, $28.81. It's up 57 cents. I think it was up a little bit higher earlier. It's starting to head toward $30. $28.85 right now. So maybe this is sensing all the stuff I've been talking about. Maybe gold and silver are sensing all that. And maybe there's a lot of people out there who are investors and stuff who they don't underestimate the handle that they might have or the knowledge that they might have about the what's going on in the geopolitical spectrum right now. Because when there's a lot of money involved, like when they're purchasing things and stuff, they do their due diligence and research. Gold price today is $23.88. It's up $16.70. Like I say, it was up a little bit more earlier. But I notice it's not going up in a straight line. But it's bullish. Regardless. Very bullish right now for gold and silver. Cryptocurrencies right now, Bitcoin's at 69,238. Ethereum is at 3,432. And XRP's at 59.2 cents. And the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 320 points today, at 38,138. So we've seen the Dow Jones dropping over the last few days. Dropping back. Why I put this on here instead of the S&P 500 or the other markets or the NASDAQ and stuff. This is the biggest of the markets out there, and so if I cover this, generally they're in lockstep. Generally, the other markets are in lockstep with the Dow. So my show would probably add too much time to cover all the other markets. But the Dow today is 328 points down. And I think that the Fed's getting a little bit more concerned that what they're doing. Right now, look at bonds. Look at what's happening here. We see a reversal here in these yields. Over the last few days, we've seen rise in yields. Today we see drop in yields. The 10 years dropped 6.5 basis points to 4.51, and the U.S. 30 years at 4.61. It's dropped 4.4 basis points. They're taking a little bit of pressure. I think they're trying to take a little bit of pressure off the market, letting these yields drop, or helping these yields to drop, I should say. 105.94 for the U.S. dollar index. 105.96. The dollar's getting rather high right now. But it didn't stop the gold rush. That dollar's went up about 2 cents in the last few days, and it hasn't stopped the gold from moving up. Generally, dollar up, gold down. Well, that's because I think gold and silver are finally hit the spot where they ain't taking it no more. And they're going to fight their way out of the box regardless of what happens. Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.